The morning began with a deceptive normalcy, the kind of stillness that feels like a held breath. You woke up at 7:15 a.m. to a house that was entirely too quiet, the sunlight hitting the floorboards in jagged, sharp angles that seemed to cut the room into pieces. Your phone was dead, not just out of battery, but cold and unresponsive, the screen a black mirror reflecting a version of your face that looked exhausted. You spent the first few hours in a daze, moving through the kitchen, but the milk was spoiled despite the expiration date being a week away, curdled into thick, gray clumps that smelled like sulfur. By noon, the sky hadn't shifted, the sun stayed pinned in the same spot, casting long, unmoving shadows that stretched across the backyard like reaching fingers. You tried to leave, but the front door wouldn't budge, not because it was locked, but because it felt as though the world on the other side had simply become solid stone. As afternoon bled into a stagnant evening, the house began to manifest a personality of its own. You sat in the living room, trying to read by the dimming light, when you noticed the wallpaper was beginning to blister. Behind the floral patterns, there was a rhythmic thumping, low and wet, like a giant heart beating inside the drywall. You pressed your ear to the plaster and heard a faint, frantic scratching from the other side, not of mice, but of human fingernails dragging against wood. You retreated to the hallway, but the proportions had shifted, the corridor seemed a mile long, the bedroom door at the end shrinking into a tiny, distant pinprick. Every clock in the house had stopped at exactly 4:44 p.m., their second hands twitching back and forth in a frantic, silent vibration. The air grew thick with the smell of old stagnant water and wet fur, making every breath a struggle against a rising tide of nausea. By the time that night arrived, though the sky remained a bruised, sickly purple rather than turning black, the first visitor made itself known. You were standing in the kitchen when you heard the sound of a chair dragging across the floor in the room directly above you. Then came the footsteps, heavy, uneven, and dragging a weight behind them. 1-2 slide. 1-2 slide. They moved from the bedroom to the stairs, and you watched the basement door creak open an inch, though nothing came out. Instead, a pale, translucent fluid began to seep from under the doorframe, smelling of copper and rot. You backed into the corner of the kitchen, clutching a steak knife, but the metal felt soft and rubbery in your hand, melting between your fingers like warm wax. The house was rejecting your reality, dissolving the rules of physics until you were left standing in a shell of a home that felt more like a digestive tract.